Well, our love letter this evening says, my name is Shakira from Atlanta, Georgia. My boyfriend insists that we were made for each other. He wants to marry and start a family with me. I'm surely convinced that that is never going to happen because he doesn't or can't satisfy me in bed. I was really trying not to make sex a deal breaker, but I can't take it any longer. He says that I'm part of the problem and he has never dealt with this before. That's a lie because one of his exes that I used to go to high school with told me, if we don't work out, I don't want this to be a problem for the next woman. How do I convince him to let this pride go so that he can be a successful lover?
Now, let's just start by saying that we changed the name and we typically change the city so that we don't reveal who this is coming from because we believe in total disclosure. But in terms of this issue, this is a big issue that many couples, within marriage in particular, struggle with. Oftentimes, once people say I do, the whole atmosphere of sex changes in their relationship. And so, listen, how would you address this, Daniel?
A couple things that I think about is the fact that, first of all, we obviously don't condone sex before marriage. We waited ourselves. It wasn't easy.
It was hard.
But it was a decision that we made together.
No pun intended.
But, there's a lot of things that stick out to me in this letter. And I think that one of those things does stem from when someone has had a sexual past. They have so much to compare. And I think that might be a good place to look at, the fact that she might have had other experiences that she's comparing with his. And then on the other side, she's saying that he has a lot of pride. And so it makes me think it's possible that he thinks he's doing all right. And he has some tricks up his sleeve that maybe worked on the last chick but isn't working on him, on her, rather. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think you're right. Usually, in terms of dealing with issues with couples that are having challenges in their sexuality, you can point to a few things. Number one, as you mentioned, size. Size is an issue for some, but I think, whether you're dealing with someone who's too big, which can be painful, or too small, I think it's knowing how to use the size that you have. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of us aren't prepared or trained or have the skill sets of knowing how to use what we've got. And, there's this expression out there, the bigger the better. Well, that may not be necessarily the case. It depends upon the woman that you're dealing with.
Exactly.
And so sometimes there could be sexual incompatibility, where someone either is too big or too small or too wide or too tight. So there's a whole lot of factors regarding that.
And I also think that in addition to that, being too large or too small, either one of those can be a problem. And either way, you have to learn to compensate for those differences to cater to the person that you're with.
Right. As a married man, one thing that you can do is Google it, because there are particular positions that cater to men depending upon their size that bring stimulation and pleasure to a woman. And so it's really about educating yourself. And that kind of transitions into the next thing. I think that sex is a skill. Much like anything else, if you have issues in your communication, well, you're going to have to learn how to be a better communicator. If you have issues when it comes to trust and open and honest communication, or issues when it comes to determining roles within your home, how to delegate responsibilities. All of these things are skill sets. And one thing that we're committed to with Couples Academy is teaching people skills of what they can do to enhance their relationship, because if you don't know, you just don't know.
And how would you speak to the pride issue? Being a man, I'm sure that she has probably tried to tell him, this is not pleasing me, this is an issue. Who knows how that delivery is being made? She could be coming at him harsh and his wall goes up, or, she could be trying to do her best to talk to him how she can. What could you say to her to speak to this pride issue, not being able to speak to him?
Well, that's a very good point, because we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. We don't know how she's delivering it. And, I talk about this all the time. There are two types of women out there. There are makers of men and breakers of men. And a breaker of men is an individual that knows how to tear a man down, knows how to destroy him, basically break down his ego. Not anything physically wrong with him, but her words just were like daggers that cut into that man's heart, that emasculates him. But then you have makers of men. These are women that build that man up, edify that man, and know how to deal with certain conversations in a palatable way for him to receive it. So first I would check her delivery. And then concerning men, a lot of men do have ego and pride, especially when it comes to sexuality, because as men, our identity is wrapped up in our sexuality, and it's assumed that we should know. It's assumed that we should be able to please. And unfortunately, there's a lot of lousy lovers out there because assumptions about our sexuality and our masculinity that are made. So it's important that we really deal with these issues.